When Indianapolis was platted in 1821, it was designed to be confined to a 1 square mile area. Designer Alexander Ralston was the apprentice of Pierre L'Enfant, designer of Washington, D.C.'s street plan, which was inspired by Paris and showcased the French's weird, perverse love of geometry. Copying L'Enfant's homework, Ralston planned for long avenues to converge into a single circle, anchored by the State House on the west and the City Market Square on the east, while the new National Road bisected the Platte as Washington Street, effectively Indianapolis' Main Street. And for its first decades, Indianapolis and the rest of Marion County was extremely agricultural. Towns like Claremont, Broad Ripple, Castleton, Southport, and Lawrence pop up independently on the edges of the county, outside of the young capital's orbit. Large influxes of European immigrants moved to Indianapolis after the war for the first time looking for factory work, and founded new suburbs around Indianapolis proper. Still needing to be within walking distance of work in Indianapolis, new towns like Hawville, Irvington, West Newton, and of course North, West, South, and East Indianapolis emerged in the years before 1900. When the car came around after 1900, it made it easier to live further from work or train lines, and towns like Speedway, Chapel Hill, Beech Grove, and Ravenswood formed. City limits crept outside of the mile square more and more, and independent black communities blossomed within the boundaries of old Indianapolis, notably along Indiana Avenue and in Ransom Place. And when rural Indiana got all clanny in the 1910s and 1920s, black communities in Indianapolis fortified themselves politically, rightfully feeling under attack, and began to push to elect local black leaders. New developments on cheap farmland outside the city limits sped up white flight after the Second World War, and the neighborhoods in Indianapolis proper began to struggle. With a continually shrinking tax base and aging infrastructure, downtown Indianapolis became a ghost town, safe for government use and some select businesses. And with just a single hotel downtown, Indy earned a reputation as a sleepy and boring city, earning monikers like Naptown and Indy No Place. Bill Hudnut was quoted as saying, "You could shoot a cannon down the street after 5 o'clock and not hit anybody." By the mid-1960s, Indianapolis had been firmly Democratic for 20 years. The black electorate had strong representative power within the city council, and talks of a black mayor being elected was not unheard of. Indianapolis Democrats attempted to expand the mayor's power and consolidate the city government with surrounding townships in 1965, but this proposal was seen as unpopular, and Mayor John Barton lacked the power or clout to get entrenched interests on board. Democratic unpopularity, both locally and nationally, led to huge Republican wins in 1966 and 1968, giving the GOP control of the governorship, both houses of the General Assembly, and the election of 35-year-old Republican school board member Richard Lugar to the mayor's office in Indianapolis. Lugar was born in Indianapolis, was an Eagle Scout, and was valedictorian of his class at integrated Shortridge High School, and would go on to be a Rhodes Scholar, even flexing his Hoosier chops by playing on Oxford University's basketball team. After a stint as a naval intelligence officer, Lugar began his political career working to remove any remaining segregationist influence from the IPS school board. Lugar caught the eye of local Republican puppet master Keith Bulin. More comfortable being behind the scenes than in the spotlight, Bulin had orchestrated the local Republican rebrand in the 1960s on the backs of energetic young politicians like Lugar. Bulin would create a coalition of local Republican politicians and business owners that would quietly plan the future of Indianapolis. The government of the city of Indianapolis would merge with the government of Marion County, annexing all the surrounding suburbs into Indianapolis and bringing all that precious tax base back into the fold. Touted as a streamlining of services and budgets, the Republicans sold their plan as a way to make Indianapolis a competitive city nationally. Labor leaders, Marion County Democrats, and most black citizens opposed consolidation, though, keenly aware it would dilute their hard-fought political power. Black neighborhoods had recently been displaced by the creation of the interstate, and the black Main Street of Indiana Avenue was erased to create the new IPUI campus. So it was safe to say black Hoosiers already felt under attack by the GOP's plans. Quietly, though, some Democrat leaders supported consolidation after their own failed attempt, but would fight to gain whatever political concessions they could from the GOP majority, in hopes of gaining strong positions in the new city-county council. But under the Indiana Constitution, any powers of governance for one city must be applicable for all cities, so Indianapolis and Marion County needed the State House to change state law for consolidation to be considered legal. And outside of Indianapolis, there was little hype for consolidation. A strong proponent of integrated public schools, much akin to his experience at Shortridge, Lugar's progressive plans for a county-wide IPS were unpopular on the ground, as were his ambitions to have unified greater Indianapolis police and fire departments. And the politically shrewd Lugar and Bulin would abandon these goals, instead hoping future administrations would be able to pull them off. And even with compromises and concessions, Bulin's coalition was not perfect. Lugar and his crew spent the following months meeting with each individual town in Marion County, hearing worries or wishes, building up local support for consolidation. Some communities were pro-annexation, others had some reservations, and a few opposed annexation altogether. And what resulted was a patchwork of included cities, those that would be annexed but would retain some financial independence and ability to pass ordinances and bonds as long as they didn't conflict with Indianapolis's, and excluded cities, municipalities that would not be annexed by Indianapolis and would remain independent tax districts with independent government, but they would still vote for the mayor of Indianapolis as the executive of Marion County and have seats on the new 29-seat city-county council. Resultantly, Southport, Lawrence, Speedway, and Beech Grove would remain unannexed and have their own police and fire departments. The state assembly designated any city with a population of 250,000 as a first-class city, which only Indianapolis qualified for at the time, and would automatically merge said city government with its county. Signed into law by Governor Whitcomb in March 1969, and becoming effective January 1st, 1971, the discourse changed from "Will Unigov happen?" to "Will Unigov work?" And when consolidation came around, the population of Indianapolis nearly doubled from just under 500,000 to over 750,000. The first time the electorate would come to have any sort of say in all this were the mayoral elections in 1971, which Lugar won easily in a landslide with a huge influx of formerly suburban Republican votes. Now with some dough to spend, Lugar began to redevelop the parking lot that was downtown Indianapolis. In 1974, Lugar bucked the trend at the time by placing the new sports arena right in the middle of downtown. Market Square Arena's location and proximity to the Circle would make loyal Pacers fans have a reason to travel to and spend their money in downtown Indianapolis. A conscious decision, the transformation of Indy from a sleeping racing town into a sports and events capital had begun. Unigov saved Indianapolis from being another St. Louis or Cleveland or Detroit, other Rust Belt cities that were unable to reinvent themselves and move forward from their defunct industrial pasts. But those left behind by Unigov were never able to compete with the fresh new money it brought in. After Unigov, a Democrat wouldn't be elected mayor of Indianapolis until 1999, and as of this recording, there has still never been a black mayor of Indianapolis. IPS was left to wither on the vine in comparison to township school districts, and would lose 70,000 students by 2005, and is still a shadow of its former self. And with a whole bunch of busing hoopla in the 1970s and 80s, it proved yesterday's solution can always become today's problem. Unigov saved Indianapolis from being another dying city. Criticisms of Republicans' willingness to leave black communities behind have remained to this day, though its opponents decry how consolidation was carried out, not consolidation itself. Lugar would go on to be elected to the U.S. Senate, where he would be a foreign relations kingpin for nearly 40 years. A champion of the city and its citizens, Lugar was among the most popular politicians in Indiana history. Nationally, he was on a top tier of influential U.S. senators reserved for the likes of Daniel Webster, John Sherman, or Henry Clay as American political icons. There are warships and parks alike named in Lugar's honor. Lugar was always learning about and pushing the limits of the status quo. He practiced what he preached, and could be personified by his own quote, saying, "If I could offer but one helpful hint to young Hoosiers hoping to better their odds for success in life, I would simply note the importance of thoughtful reading." Unigov is an imperfect law, but it gave Indianapolis hope and a fighting chance when other Rust Belt cities were forgotten about. Only 2 generations removed, Unigov's benefits and effects are still being written every day, and it's up to us as Hoosiers to continue the construction and betterment of our capital city and state into the future.